Welcome to the Networking with Michelle podcast, the show dedicated on providing you the how-tos of marketing and networking strategies. Here we believe in the Jim Rohn quote, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Hey everyone, welcome back to a new episode of Networking with Michelle. I'm your host, Michelle Gomez. I want to start off with a few shout outs. First, we have Crystal continuously promoting the podcast on social media. You are so appreciated. If you ever want to win me over, just share the post, share the podcast. That's all it takes, right? Second, Delana, thank you for that quote, letting me know that I'm an inspiration. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to following your success. And then last, we got Michael. Michael was kind enough to write an iTunes review. So I'm going to go ahead and read that. Networking with Michelle is a fantastic resource. Michelle is very open and authentic and cares deeply to help others. I know how to read, just my phone. Okay. She speaks on subjects of which she lives and offers advice based on firsthand experience on how you too can improve networking competencies and confidence. So what does success mean to you? Thank you, Michael, for leaving that iTunes review. And that's what I want y'all to think about. That's why I said question, how do you define success? And I'm working on something right now, a couple of books around that. I said a couple, but basically putting some success quotes together from the podcast and maybe something else to complement it. But really, figure that out. Ask yourself, what does success mean to you? What does that look like? And this is way beyond the material things. And if you've been following the podcast, even if you've listened to 5 episodes, and when you hear people answer what success means to them, it's not even about the material things, right? So just don't get me started. That's my sweet spot right there. So today's guest, we have Dominique Carson. She's a writer, and I need to give her a shout out because about 3 to 4 years ago, my friend Ashlyn, she was singing. She came out with her first project, and I was doing this manager / PR / everything under the sun role. And I was researching different publications that would be willing, that fit the criteria of what Ashlyn was doing. And I came across Dominique. And at the time, she was writing for soultrain.com, and she was nice enough to do the interview and feature Ashlyn on soultrain.com. And also, this is how the 6 degrees of separation thing work. And so that must have been 2013, 2014. And 2015, I went to a conference called New Media Expo, and I met one of my business buddies, Danielle, and Dominique used to work for Danielle when Danielle had a magazine. So of course now we're all Facebook friends, right? The power of Facebook. So it was nothing to not even just repay the favor with this interview, but just to follow one's career, to follow one's success. And I think to me, that's just the amazing story of life. Everyone has a story, but to be on that journey or even on the sidelines on a good way and to witness their success is a beautiful thing. So Dominique, she's a freelance writer, and we're going to talk about, how do you navigate the waters of being a freelance writer, especially in today's day and age where everything's around personal branding and you have people just submitting articles to Huffington Post and these different publications just to say that they're featured on or to increase their visibility, and which is a different strategy, but Dominique is a paid writer. So listen up. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Also want to remind you to check out Line 25 Consulting, where they're empowering entrepreneurs to develop their personal brand by leveraging relationships and expertise. Visit line25consulting.com. That's line25consulting.com. So without further ado, Dominique Carson. Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of Networking with Michelle. I'm your host, Michelle Gomez. If this is your first time tuning in, I definitely want to thank you. Today's special guest is Dominique Carson. She is a contributing writer for ebony.com, Bleu Magazine, and singersroom.com. Dominique, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing very well.
Good, 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 good. So how did you get started as a contributing freelance writer?
Well, I started writing since I was about 8 years old. I just had this conversation with my mom the other day. She found one of my first letters that I wrote to her at the end of second grade, going into third grade. So that's pretty much where the journey began as a writer. My Uncle Ricky really inspired me to be a writer and be creative and be authentic and just express how you're feeling. So at that time, in my childhood, writing became very therapeutic for me and recreational at the same time. I was around cousins that wrote as well. My cousins Iani and Fatima, they already were excellent poets. So I was just really around people that were very creative and artistic. So that's how my writing got started. But as a journalist is concerned, I was watching television one day at my grandmother's house, and my grandmother had this big burgundy rocking chair, and I used to watch Teen Summit every Saturday on BET, and that's when I decided, okay, I'm gonna be a journalist. But I didn't want to be in video limelight. I wanted to write and just participate in the print side of it. So I told my mother, she was like, okay, this is what you really want to do. And my mother already had me reading in the third grade for an hour during the school year and 2 hours in the summer. My grandparents subscribed every magazine that they could think of so I can learn different writing styles. I grew up on different journalists that I had to know. Oprah, of course, Diane Sora, Cheryl Wilds, the whole New York one. Peter Jennings, my grandfather was a big Peter Jennings fan, so I had to watch him as well. And then by the time I was 16 at Murrow, I published my first article. And the first artist that I interviewed was Drake when he was on the cast of Degrassi. MTV Studios had a high school journalism workshop where we were able to interview the cast, and Drake was there at the time, and he was still on the show and developing his rap career. So roughly, I've been writing since I was 8 years old, but I've been a journalist since I was 16. So that's where the whole journey got started. Enrolling in Edward R. Murrow changed my life so much, expand me to a different culture. From that school, I learned another language, Italian as well. And since 11 years later, I've written for other publications as well, either community news and up to the big name that you said, ebony.com, Blue Magazine, even the online posting. It's just still an honor to see yourself and see your article and still get that vigor and that excitement. Ironically, I remember in college, I published a piece in Amsterdam News, and my cousin Jonathan was in the store, and he's like, "Wait a minute, I know that person, like Dominique Carson." So he called me, and he's like, "Cuz, like your article's in Amsterdam News." I was like, "Stop playing," and he sent me a photo, and I was just like, "Wow!" I felt like, okay, I'm on my way. So this has been a lifelong passion of mine, and I really had family that really supported, from, like I said, my mother to my grandparents to my uncle to my cousins, that really, wow, she's gonna really do something with this frame of art. So that's where it all got started.
That's awesome that your family, your whole family was able to nurture you through this process. And when your grandparents were bringing you all of these magazines and stuff, were you like
Yes.
deciding, like, I want to write about this, I want to focus on this industry? When were you able to narrow it down? I know you as the entertainment side. So when were you able to narrow it down to a specific industry?
I think I was able to narrow it down in college. Like I was always taught to not limit yourself as a writer. As long as you know the basics of how to construct an article, you know how to write an article. And one of the best things about Brooklyn College, and when I was in Murrow, we had to write soft news, hard news, profiles, opinion related interviews, op-eds, anything you could think in the category of journalism, I had to write. So I wasn't just limited to one beat. And then in the middle of my journalism program, we had beat reporting, and we chose the beat. And ironically, entertainment wasn't my beat. Education was my beat. That's the beat that I started with. And after a while, I just started observing different beats, and that including, my love for feature writing, and that's how I got into the entertainment and the music side of it. And when I started grad school, Gary Gentles, who's the founder, the editor of Singers Room, had a online posting on ed2010.com and said, I'm looking for a writer. I'm looking for a strong writer. I submitted my stuff. He had an idea of who I was, and he gave me a tryout. My first assignment was Rocky Fresh mixtape release party in Lower Manhattan, and I had a deadline. I had to submit the article the next day. He said, doesn't matter how, I just want to see how punctual and dedicated you are for this role. So I submitted it, and next thing you know, I've been writing for them 4 years now. So it was that tryout where I got into my groove of writing entertainment and music. And that's how all the other outlets started coming in and started really building really great professional relationships with publicists and management. So it didn't really narrow down till I was in college. I just knew as a kid, I just wanted to write. I didn't care what it was. And I just knew. Now, my grandparents gave me the important implements that I needed to be a voracious writer. And as far as the reader, that was my mother. If it wasn't for her telling us that we had to read, I don't think I would able to expand my horizons as a writer. At the same time, by the time I was in middle school, I was reading Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, Nikki Giovanni, Maya Angelou, and the list can go on. All the great writers I started reading. And that was because of her saying every day, 5 days a week during the school year, you have to read for an hour and 2 hours in the summer. And I laugh out about it now because I have a cousin who used to come to my house every weekend in the summer. He used to hate it when I had to read, and he would just sit in the living room until I would finish reading for my 2 hours. And it was dreadful then, but I appreciate it so much now. I really, really do. So, like I said, it was like boot camp in my childhood to be the best journalist I could be right now.
Now, you mentioned that reading and writing go hand in hand. What are some other good skills and qualities, traits that a writer needs? Because I know a lot of my audience, they want to write a book, they want to submit articles to Huffington Post because they want to increase that visibility, but it's more than writing. So what else is there?
I think another aspect of it is good interviewing skills. Like if you are in a newsroom or if you're writing for an outlet already, you never stop coming up and challenging yourself as when you're interviewing your interviewers. Like that's the most important thing. One of the most important things. Secondly, is your pitches. You have to learn how to pitch. Even seasoned journalists, starting journalists, we always have to learn how to pitch. What story idea that's going to convince this reader to say, okay, let's give her the opportunity to write this article. And that's still a challenge myself. And I've been doing this for the last 11 years. It's the pitch. And I think that's what a lot of journalists shun away from that's the only downfall about freelancing is that you have to come up with a pitch that's going to make this editor say, okay, this is worthwhile listening to. I would say interviewing, pitching, networking, staying in touch with your alma, staying in touch with your editors, staying in touch with organizations. Like I'm in 2 major organizations, NYBJ and NABJ, and I still participate in my meetings and conferences and mixtures because that's still around people that's in your circuit, that's in your bracket, that can give you pointers about how to be the best writer that you can be. So you got to utilize every resource that you can think of as well. As much as this profession is very rewarding and I enjoy it, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to even have a byline. So imagine a book. And as far as books is concerned, because I'm really thinking about writing a book eventually, you have to really think about if you want it to be self-published, even if you got to think of the mechanics of everything outside of just writing as well. So it's a little bit of research. And like I said, for a journalistic style of it is interviewing, pitching, and networking.
What kind of book would you write?
Ironically, I would say all the interviews I've done so far. I can't say a memoir just yet because I'm only 26. So I would say all the interviews that I probably will write the top 10 interviews I've done that meant so special to me. Like my favorite interview so far is Charlie Wilson. And I've interviewed this man 3 times. But the 3 times that I interviewed him was a different experience. And one of them was in person. And it was so special to me because my grandfather was a big Gap Band fan. I had to know that was an artist that I had to know. If I didn't know any other musical legends, he was one I had to know. And that it was the same thing when I interviewed Eddie Levert from the OJs. I felt like my grandfather was reincarnated because I felt like I was talking to my grandfather. All the questions, the energy, the vibe. And that's what comes along with interviewing. It's just more than just asking the questions. It's just setting the mood and coming up with an angle that's not going to, disrespect the interviewer and interviewee at the same time. So I would just narrow it down to maybe right now where I'm at in my life, the interviews I love doing, and just balancing my life as a journalist and now a future massage therapist, trying to balance both at the same time.
Okay. I mean, do you love both of them equally, or what's your? I mean, I think.
Um, I can't say equally, because I've started my love affair with journalism more than almost 20 years ago. So massage therapy started off as a joke. I, um, I'm gonna be honest, it started off as a joke. I was at home massaging my mom, and I was massaging her as a teenager, and she's like, "You're really good with this." And my grandmother always told me as well, along with your writing, you're gonna do something with your hands. It was just like the way I touched her, the way I hold her. She knew I was gonna do something with my hands in addition to being a journalist. So I was like, okay, all right, whatever. And then I started massaging my cousins and now friends from the neighborhood, and they was like, wow, yo, Dom's really dope at this. And I figured, since I finished grad school with journalism, and I just said, I want to go back and get my license, because I remember my mom and I saying we really want to own a business and the massage business. And we was in the living room, in her room, saying like different sections in Brooklyn where we will open it. And she's like, you need to come up with a name that's going to be authentic, that's going to grab people's attention. And that's when the Italian came in. And I said, I would like to call it La Donna Bella, the beautiful woman, and just being beautiful inside and out. So I said, that's the name. And my mother was like, okay, that's a name that's going to grab people's attention. That's the name. Like, what does that really mean? And I decided, okay, I'm going to get my license. And now that I'm enrolled in this program, my third semester, it is a challenge because science is my least favorite subject in school. But I changed my mindset about learning the body and understanding that massage is a healing art. It's a serious art. It's very therapeutic. It's learning the muscles, the body, how everything is important to enhance that individual self-being while you're in the session with them. And it just gravitates to me. The science part of it is always going to be a challenge, but the massage is just, wow, it just gave you a different mindset, because people just think you're just touching on a person. No, you have the opportunity to facilitate people's lives through your hands. And that's amazing. That's amazing. That is amazing. And I just can't wait to say I'm officially a massage therapist in 2019. I'm already involved. I'm in 2 organizations. I'm getting ready to go to a conference next month in upstate New York. So I'm just trying to enhance my knowledge on this profession, like how I did in journalism. Like, I was hungry, and that's how I feel about massage therapy. And I think as I continue to go in this direction, it's going to gravitate and have the same amount of vigor for me as far as writing is concerned.
I find that interesting because earlier you stated that writing was therapeutic for you, and now as a massage therapist, or up and coming massage therapist, it's like you're going to be therapeutic for others, right? Because I like how you said it. You might need to say it again, but like you
facilitate people's lives through your hands, and I do it with my words. I do it with my words as well. And the other reason why I really decided to be a journalist, my 4th grade teacher, Miss Ellen had a posting on literary concepts called Author's Purpose. And she listed down the 4 things that an author does. We inform, we instruct, we entertain, and we persuade. And I thought, like, wow, that's what journalists do. That's what we're supposed to do, because we are considered to be authors of the world, authors of the world. And that was like final confirmation. Okay, this is the profession I'm supposed to be in. I'm supposed to be in it. And I took that literary concept from the time I was after in the 4th grade. And as ironically, I still have my notes that I have in Merrill on how to construct an article, a hook, a nut, a quote, a newsworthy thank you to Mrs. Scott Mencha. And I could say all these different teachers' names because they have impacted me in a very profound way. And there's other teachers as well that were my journalism teachers, but they were my English teachers that inspired me. Even other teachers in school that have inspired my knowledge for health. Miss Sally Hipship, Miss Boyd. Like I said, just it goes back to utilizing your resources that you have to make you a better person, a well-rounded individual, in addition to being a writer.
With us being in this digital time, what's your take with Black publications within the digital space? You have like websites such as Blavity being considered more of a tech website, or they're getting investors. Root.com, I believe Jet Magazine is coming back out. Do you think there's still room for print, or everything is really digital? And how do the African American publications compare?
I think there's still room for print. I think we're just putting print in the digital. It's not just because you're still printing. As long as people still want to hear news and they still want to hear news that's going to impact them, there's always going to be room in this profession. It's just the outlet and the structure of how the news is being presented now. And that's coming to terms of how we should deal with our society. We're dealing with a generation now that's mainly social media. So we're thinking about numbers and visibility. And that also blends well with content. So you have to make sure that your content is presentable to get those numbers and get those likes and get those tweets. So print is still being displayed. It's just the way that it's formatted is changing because of we are trying to adapt to a generation that's mainly the internet versus 20 years ago, social media wasn't even existed. It was okay to go and, pay 25, 50 cents for a newspaper or subscribe to a magazine because the way that the times were different back then. Now it's just like I think everybody is just trying to adapt to social media and still present news that's going to be worthwhile to people, based on interest, based on subjects. And that's why we have BuzzFeed, and that's why we have The Root, and that's why we have The Griot and the HuffPost. And you see how HuffPost, they have different beats online. So people can still pick up a subject that they're still interested in and then still have general news at the same time.
Yeah. I know within the online marketing space, there's a lot of marketers and entrepreneurs. They want to write for credibility, so they're willing to submit a free article or even be a free writer to Entrepreneur, Inc. magazine, Huffington Post. From what I understand, they're notorious for not paying their writers. But when you do have a professional such as yourself, what advice do you give someone that they have studied writing, they're a professional writer by education, they're a skilled writer, and they actually want to pursue this as a career? What type of advice would you give them?
Well, if they're just starting school, I would still say that you still collaborate, in your organizations. You still be involved in your organizations. As a recent graduate, there's summer internships. There's internships for recent graduates. You still participate in those. You even take a freelance opportunity to get your foot in the door. And that's what I did. When I graduated from undergrad, I took a part-time communication related job at Brooklyn College because I still wanted to write and I was still going to graduate school. So, like I said, it goes back to utilizing the resources that you have. And even myself being graduating in this profession maybe 6 years just between my undergrad and grad, it's still a challenge, even for people that are already experienced. But like I said, it's just not being afraid to ask questions. It would be also if great if they have colleagues, because what we did in Brooklyn College, we set up a Facebook page. Well, Loretta Chen, she set up a Facebook page where all different journalism graduates network and post your stuff on social media. And it's just a place where a recent alumni can ask questions, submit their articles, attend workshops. She set it up, so she felt like it was a good idea to still make a noise and make a voice for people that still have their, uncertainties about the field. Because like I said, as much as rewarding as it is, the reality is that it can be very challenging as far as finding employment, finding even freelance employment. It could still be a challenge in itself. So that's why she did what she did. So I would just say, utilize your resources, stay in touch with your alma maters. That's one word. Stay in touch with your mentors. Stay in touch with people that you intern with. Don't burn bridges. Don't burn bridges. And I think that's a lot of us, that's what we do. Okay, like, yeah, I got a degree and I got all of this and I don't need this. And you never know who you're going to need 5-10 years from now. And I'm just so thankful that's how I was able to have the opportunity that I have now with Gary. It was that one person that believed in me, that say, okay, I'm fit to be an entertainment reporter. It was him. And I think for like 2.5 years, I worked for free, busting my tail, working for free for him. And you just have to understand that everything is not going to happen overnight. It's not, especially in journalism, it's not going to happen overnight. But if you still have that vigor and that enthusiasm when you write and say, okay, like, this is a solid piece, that you can still have that vigor and that excitement, you know that it's still right for you. And that's what I still have, even when times are difficult and times could be very overwhelming. That still doesn't take away how I feel when my article was published, or when I'm submitting that article right on deadline. So, like I said, it's just being resourceful, diligent, networking, staying in touch with your resources, and humbling yourself and understanding that it's not going to happen overnight. It's really, really not. It's not going to happen. You have to put in the work. And my mother always said it to me, faith without works is dead. It is. You gotta show initiative. You gotta show these people that you hungry to make a name for yourself.
Do you have any resources that you use on a regular basis to help you as a writer, or just even when it comes to gathering content as a whole?
I still look at the news to help me figure out like what articles that I want to write about. That's for one. Like I said, I still utilize all the media related sites such as Media Bistro, Journalism Jobs, Journalism Next. My organizations, they always send us emails about different people that are coming in to speak, networking mixtures. I actually did the NABJ 2017 Twitter Black Media Twitter conference at the CUNY J School. So that was really great to be a part of other elite journalists and watch them talk about passionately of how our field is continuing to change. And one of my colleagues that I collaborated with, Sylvia Obel, she's a staff writer at BuzzFeed. So it's just great to still utilize those resources, whether it's once a week, twice a month, every other month. That has helped me as well. Like I said, NABJ and NYABJ, that has really, really helped me. And my mentors, I still speak to occasionally. And unfortunately, one of my mentor and colleague passed away, Michael Feeney. He was really the one that inspired me to really join these organizations. And because of him, when I was in graduate school, I was able to go to and they participate in the NABJ multimedia project in Florida as a student for free. All I had to do was just take a plane to Florida. And for 5 days, it was great. You was working in a newsroom and just coming up with content and being around people from all different walks of life in this profession. That's yes, that's an opportunity. That's amazing. So, like I said, just staying in touch, really staying in touch with the people that you build relationships with. Even if you have mentors that's not even in your subject, you never know who they know, so they can contact you. And I have one of them. His name is Robert Scott. The man is still retired and still trying to look out for people who he has mentored, for sure.
Definitely. So, what do you have lined up for 2017?
Um, like I said, my continuing with my massage therapy. Like I said, I have 2 years left before I am licensed. I'm still going to be freelancing as well, and what I do during the week, I work with Police Athletic League and the Youth Employment Division. I'm an intake coordinator, and I like the liaison between the Director of Youth Employment and the SYP coordinators, getting our kids ready for the Summer Youth Employment Program. And in the winter time, we have this other program called Work and Learn and Grow. So that's what I've been currently doing right now. As you can see, I can juggle many different fields at the same time. So that's what I've been doing as well, because as much as I love freelancing, it's just this hustler mentality. You still have to come up and make some real revenue at the same time. So that's what Police Athletic League, Police Athletic League did for me. And it just brought flashbacks because of the process that I had to go through when I was doing summer youth when I was 16, getting all the paperwork together, asking your mom, okay, I need such and this, such, and just getting ready for the week, because we give them workshops on work readiness, financial literacy, the do's and don'ts of social media. We teaching youth that now versus when they're already in college. They're already equipped with job related experiences, but most importantly, how to conduct themselves in a professional manner in the workplace. Because a lot of the youth that we work with they come from urbanized communities, low income homes, and a lot of them is their first job. And maybe they come from a family that doesn't even work at all. So that's why we kind of conduct these workshops to get them equipped and get them ready in the job market.
Very important. Very, very important. And I think we as society, we do need to do better targeting the youth when it comes to professional, I'm just going to say overall professional development, financial literacy, and social media. Because by the time they get to high school, excuse me, college, it's becoming too late at this point.
It is. It is, because the kids are like, what, 19, 20? So it's better for you to start to implant the root now. So even if they don't take anything that you said, they take that portion. Okay, this is what I know how to do, and what they like to call it with Brooklyn College is soft skills, learning how to talk to people, eye contact, being punctual, being respectful, being empathetic with your colleagues and your supervisors. We teaching them that now. So we trying to conduct workshops that are knowledgeable and present them in a very fun way, so the kids are not being tedious. We're working with teenagers, so we try to play different games with them and still allow them to leave with a message at the same time.
Definitely. So to wrap it up, how do you define success?
How do I define success? I would say knowing God, knowing who you are, and what your purpose is. That's success to me. And I feel like with all three that I just said, it's still a learning process. I am thankful and blessed that I've accomplished everything I've accomplished thus far, but there's still more to do. I feel like now at 26, I'm still marinating in my purpose. And now I know what it is. And like I said it before, it's facilitating people's lives through my words and now my hands. I feel like I'm just killing two birds in one stone. And once that is continue to manifest and maneuver, it's going to be a big finale to everything. So like I said, it's just knowing who you are, knowing God, and knowing your purpose, and just thanking him. And my journey alone, I have to thank God in everything that I do. I came from being deaf as a child, deaf in both ears and not talking, to where I'm at right now. And nobody can tell me there's nothing but God in my life. And not just thanking him for what he can do for me, just thanking him for who he is. This supreme being that's all knowing, that's an alpha, that's an omega. So I have to thank him. And every day that I wake up, he's given me a second chance to fix my life and continue to live in it and dance in it as well. I mean, in the minute I got my hearing back, I felt like I had to make something of myself. I had to continue to reach my full potential and continue to acknowledge and appreciate the family, the friends, the colleagues, the mentors that I have in my life to do the things that I do right now.
Definitely. Wow. So you're walking, living, breathing testimony.
Yes, I am. And I just look at, if you look on my Instagram, there's a picture of me wearing my hearing aids. And I look at that picture to show, like, this is where it all started. So you never want to burn too many bridges and have that ego. Because God, it just shows you where God has brought you from. And the best thing you could do is just go up and just understand that you have to still be a victor in your life. There's always going to be troublesome. There's always going to be challenges. It's how you frame those challenges and use those challenges.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate your kindred spirit. I love this story. You just mentioned Instagram. So how can people get in touch with you?
Dom Carson 90. That's my Instagram. My Twitter is Dom Carson, and my Facebook, where you can see all my articles, is facebook.com/DMC922. So that's where people can really look at my articles. I'm also on LinkedIn, so that's another option. You could look at my projects and everything I've done thus far.
All right, cool. Everyone, I challenge you to not just follow her, but to find and marinate in your purpose. I love it. Marinate in your purpose. Dom, I want to appreciate you for being a guest on the show. Everyone, you know I believe in you. Remember, a personal connection leads to an influential network. So thanks for networking with Michelle.